everyone! Happy first day of fall! Actually, by the time this video drops, it'll be a few days later, but as of filming, it is officially autumn. And appropriately enough, today I'm talking about a couple of books that were on my fall TBR, and I have now read them and can officially check them off. I'm Shayne, I write romance and romantic fiction, and today I'm doing my September wrap-up. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have Never the Roses by Jennifer K. Lambert. I think I might still be processing this book. First off, let me just show you how beautiful this is. This is, I think, just the regular edition. It's from the library, and you can see the cover there. And then it has, and this lettering, sometimes it looks kind of like metallic green and sometimes it looks gold. It probably just depends on how the light's showing. Has beautiful gold rose on the inside. And then look at the edges. So on the sprayed edges here, you have like this landscape with the castle. And then on the bottom, like the roses here extend down to the roses at the bottom. And then the stars here extend to the stars up on the top. And then all around the border on the front and back are like these rose thorns. It was a beautiful book, just absolutely gorgeous. Also, I do have to say that the author used to be in my writing group, so I have a little brush with fame there. I'm so thrilled for her because this book is doing really well. I think this is kind of a new direction for her. And I also saw that Katherine Heigl shouted this book out on TikTok, which is super exciting. So what is this book about, you might ask? This book is about, so this is a fantasy book. It's romantic fantasy. It's set in a high fantasy world, and it's about a sorceress named Onira, who is the most powerful sorceress in the land, and she has retired. So she was able to pay her way out of having to do work for anybody anymore, and she's retiring. And she exiles herself away and is just ready to kind of just throw in the towel and live her final days out in peace. Because in this world, when it's discovered that people have been born with magic, they are taken away from their homes and trained to be warriors by whoever it is that can afford to buy them, basically. And they're trained to be warriors in whatever wars they want to wage against their opponents. And they basically are in debt to the people who paid for them and paid for their training. So a lot of them just have to continue to sort of do the bidding of whoever bought them and trained them because they're in debt to them. But Onira found a way to pay off her debt. She says, I'm done with wars. I'm done with men and their wars. I'm retiring. I'm done. Let me just back up and say this book also reminds me, I know that I had said I was getting Cersei vibes from this book, and I think that really holds. She is an Oniromancer, which means she has the power to go into dreams. That's part of what makes her so incredibly powerful, is that she can go into the dream world and basically do stealth sneak attacks on people while they're sleeping. But she can also go into the dream world to create things in real life. So she creates her home, she creates the gate, she creates the protections around it, and she's just kind of living her life, you know, learning how to make her own bread and grow her own food and, you know, sharpen her magic so she can keep her protections up. And she's joined in her little solitude, she's actually joined by 3 animal / magical creatures, a wolf, a kestrel, and a cat. And of course, there's actually more going on with those 3 creatures. And so she's just kind of like hanging out, doing her thing. And then she realizes that she is bored out of her mind. This I understood. I remember it might seem like an unusual driving force for a character, but I related to that immediately. I remember when I graduated from college and was looking for work, looking for a job, looking for the job, your first job out of college, the kind of job that you can get now that you have a college degree. Oh boy, that was an idealistic time, very briefly, because then you find out, oh, if there aren't any jobs, it doesn't really matter if you have a college degree. So I was still working at the same job that I had been working at while I was putting myself through college. It was a retail job. And I remember one day realizing that I was so flipping bored that if I didn't get another job, like just about any other job, I was going to lose my you-know-what. I was losing my mind. And I was like, oh, this is deadly. I am somebody who cannot be bored. Not that being stressed or anxious is particularly any better, but it's just that was a motivation for me to get like another job. Any job. It did not have to be the perfect job. It just had to be something different than what I was doing. So she starts going into the dream world looking for something. And she doesn't know what she's looking for, but it's because she's bored. And where she ends up going is into the library of her arch nemesis, Theranos Stormbreaker. Now, they are arch nemesis. We'll just say arch enemies, because he is rumored to be another very powerful sorcerer, maybe even as powerful as her. And he works for the opposition. And their power and their enemy status is like the stuff of legends. And even though they never met in person, they may as well have, because they hear stories of each other all the time, because everyone else is telling stories about them and thinking about what would happen if they were pitted against each other. But the flip side of that sort of mythos around them is that whoever they're working for, their enemy is kind of maybe hesitant to attack them because they know, oh, you have Theranos on your side, or you have Onera on your side, so maybe I won't be so quick to attack your lands because you have a very powerful magical worker working for you. But she has heard that he has the most vast and extensive library in all the land. And she's like, I can go into this library and probably find something that'll help answer this question or this boredom, this restlessness inside me. And that is, shall we say, the thing, right? The thing that sets the story in motion. You're just trying to live your life in peace, but we can't ever do that. There's always something we're looking for. And that sets off this book or this story. And it kind of starts off as this kind of like incognito or masked identity correspondence, where he doesn't know who is sneaking into his castle and taking books and leaving notes. And they start sort of corresponding with each other and getting like each other's curiosity and interest up. So slow burn. I feel like that is all I can say about this story, other than, of course, their correspondence sets things in motion that become larger than them, and they have to make very serious decisions. I feel like that's all I can say about this without giving anything away. Because of what's going on in the world right now, the themes of this book, or this world that they're in, the author really sort of does a really good job of being very clear in setting up or conveying this idea that war is kind of very basic and very simple. It's the tension between people who are just wanting to live their life in peace and people who can't live their life in peace because they feel like there's something missing, and the only way they can satisfy what's missing is to take over other people. And that seems, and I think she even distills it even more simple than that, but it makes me think about just kind of where we are right now, where you have people who just can't let other people be who they are and live their lives. And because of that, you have terror and pain and loss of life. And it was actually kind of frightening to see how what drives people to wage war on another people is very elemental and can just like F up all your stuff. yeah, I'm still kind of processing this book. This is described genre-wise as being romantic fantasy, and I think that is accurate because it doesn't follow the conventions of a romance. So just go into the story knowing that if you're looking for the romance as we know it, where the central story is the relationship and there is a very happy and emotionally satisfying ending, this is not that, but there is the romance, and the connection between the two characters is a very significant part of the story. I've never read anything like this, and the writing is exquisite. The writing style reminds me a little bit of Alice Hoffman, where there's this kind of like fluid storytelling that is not about this scene happens and comes to this climax and this resolution, and then this scene happens and comes to this climax and resolution or question. It's different than that. So if you like Alice Hoffman's writing style, I think you will like this book. If you love Circe, I think you'll really enjoy this book. And if you like a story about a very strong and independent sorceress, witch figure woman, you will love this book. If you are looking for the kind of romance that is about two people who are so, because of their talent and because of where they have been positioned in life, who have been alone all their lives and find a connection in each other that they could never find with anybody else. Whew, gonna get emotional. I think you'll enjoy this story. So that is, wow, I don't even know how to wrap this up, but it's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to the next book, and that is Never the Roses by Jennifer K. Lambert. Okay, the next book that was on my fall TBR that I finished, I listened to it on audio, is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. Oh, I love this book. I enjoyed it even more than I thought I was going to. It is definitely the cozy, witchy, autumnal book that I needed at the time. And I would say that there is a similar theme. There is some similar ideas between that book and Never the Roses, even though they're very different stories, very different worlds, very different characters, very different setups. It is about a witch who has been sort of like not really using her magic. She's been keeping her magic under wraps because she's, you know, like the rest of us, living in the everyday world, trying to make a living, trying to just get through life. And she works in a bookstore, and the bookstore has just been sort of handed over by the longtime owner. She's just handed it over to her son, who, I mean, he's a jerk. Let's just say it. The son is a jerk. He doesn't understand what makes the bookstore special. He doesn't understand the book industry. He doesn't understand readers. He doesn't understand this store's clientele. Doesn't understand any of that. Just comes in thinking, oh, we gotta change this up and make more money. Blah, blah, blah. And all you people who've been working here all this time, you don't know anything. I don't need to listen to your ideas. He's very verbally abusive. And she is stuck in this situation. She's hitting her 30th birthday, and it's kind of the kickoff of like, okay, what are you going to do with your life? So what ends up happening is that she receives a summons from her coven saying, you must now come in, now that you're 30, you must come in and take this test to prove that you're worthy of keeping your magic. And it just takes off from there. So what I loved about this book, you have your great cast of characters. You have her sort of like very outgoing and kind of, you know, says exactly what she thinks, roommate / best friend. You have her co-workers who are kind of in the trenches with her, having to deal with this crazy boss. You have the sort of watchman / protector / guardian who comes to tell her, yeah, you've been summoned to the coven and need to take these tests. And you have her mom who kind of, her mother is kind of like the opposite of like the overbearing, you need to be learning your magic and doing all this. Her mother was kind of like, do you, girl? And that kind of like, I wouldn't say backfired, but the flip side of having a guardian or a parent who just says, you do you, boo, is that you do you may translate into just kind of slacking around until you realize, oh crap, I had all this time to be getting my stuff together and I didn't. And she's like, why didn't you tell me I was gonna have to take these tests? And she's like, because, and her mom's like, because that's the point. The point is that you find your way on your own. I thought that was a really good twist on like the what it means to be a parent. And then you have the members of the coven who are deciding whether or not she should keep her magic. So the story structure is very similar, I would say, to the hero's journey, because you have, you know, the call to adventure, the refusal of the call, you have the mentor figure, and the mentor figure is just wonderful. The mentor figure is somebody who is like the last resort, like the last person who they can like unearth to help her like master these tests. But he's also somebody who has his own sort of dark and troubled past, and she's a little like has some trepidation about working with him, and then he turns out to be completely the opposite of what you might think. So I love that like flipping of expectations of the mentor figure. And then you have the series of tests and the midpoint where you realize, oh, there's something else going on here. It's classic hero's journey, and it's a combination of having all these cozy elements. You know, there was some things that reminded me of Charmed. There were some things that reminded me of the 90s TV show Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But there's also like some very serious consequences going on. I also really liked the idea, the way that magic in this book was sort of analogous to like having that own thing about you, that unique thing about you as an individual that makes you tick and that makes you happy. Those are like qualities and things that are really important to people and important to life that are hard to sort of quantify. It's not so much I have the desire to be a doctor so I can save lives, or I have the desire to, you know, be a scientist so I can discover how to make, you know, so I can discover a cure for an illness. I have this desire, I want to be the best ballerina in the land. It's something else. It's that thing that makes you unique. It's that thing that gives you your essence, that thing that makes you just be happy and feel joy. And it can be something big or small. And magic in this story was sort of the metaphor for that. So I think that's what made it so relatable, because it was so clear that it could be, oh, that feeling I get when I make like a really great meal for my friends, or that inner peace when I paint something that is in my mind's eye, or, you know, that feeling of just comfort where I'm hanging out with my friends, just being myself. That is what, to me, the magic sort of represented. And it's just such a very important part of living and being a human being. The themes of the story, too, I think are really relatable, because the theme of the story, I think, is having confidence in yourself and believing yourself. But not just that, having the confidence that you can accomplish what you set out to do, even if you have no clue how to do it, you have no idea even if you want to do it. You just know that I have to see this through. And it was about the belief that in the end, if I put in the time, if I put in the work, if I just keep trying, if I just have this sense of confidence that I can do this, even if I fail multiple times, in the end, something will work out. That was the theme of the story. And I think that's such an important message for anybody. But I think particularly, people who are in the creative field can kind of relate to that. Because being creative is this kind of intangible thing that might not necessarily have these spectacular or immediate results, but it's the process of getting to that end result and just sticking it out, even if you don't really know what you're doing. Because it's okay to not know what you're doing, and it's the process of figuring it out that is the thing that gives you skill and tenacity and confidence. And that was a theme in the book that really resonated with me. It was also very funny and very quirky, and I love how the heroine too, how when she's kind of presented with this like summons and this like, by the way, you got to take these tests or have your magic taken away from you. That process, like how that storyline was introduced, was also how the world building was, how the world was built, as far as like, you know, as the reader understanding what's going on. But also, I just really loved how she handled this, like these things just happening, like the way that the message was delivered was via Rune, who's the love interest, and he just kind of pops up in the store and she's like, "How are you?" And he's like, "I have this important summons." And she's like, "Okay, but you can't just pop up in the store in front of all these people and expect me to answer the summons without any like explanation. And by the way, you're also jeopardizing like my incognito, I don't want other people to know that I'm a witch thing. You can't just do this." I really like how, even though he was her guardian, she was also having to teach him in a way how to function in the real world, because he's been hanging out with the coven, just kind of doing the magical thing. And it's like, no, you can't just come into the real world, and you can't just come up to me living in the real world and be like doing what you're doing. Because he was, the other thing is that he was kind of playing on that archetype of the mysterious man who just, the mysterious, powerful male figure, right? Who just pops in and is like, "You have been called." And he also kind of does it, he in a way he could represent like a regular person who is trying to be the idea of what it means to be masculine, and who is maybe like, "Oh, I kind of like this person and I want to get their attention and I want to do nice things for them, but I don't know how because I don't have the right, you know, role model for that." You know, there's so much, I mean, we all do this. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. We all love the idea of this dark, mysterious stranger who is hot and attractive and alluring, who just pops up. But in real life, it's like, actually, this is a little disconcerting. This is actually like messing up my day. And that's a very real reality. And she has to sort of teach him in a way. And I think this is a great lesson for all of us, is that we have to let people know what works for us. We have to let people know, this is how I need you to communicate with me. We have to let people know, this is how I need you to be here for me when I'm upset about something. And that sort of conflict played out really well. And I think it's a really great modern sort of message for people, that we're all kind of figuring it out. We're all kind of figuring it out. And we just have to try and listen and adjust. And that's how we get through it. So anyway, wow, I don't know if that tells you what you need. I don't even know if I did the book justice. I don't know if I did either of these book justices. Either of these book justices, really. I don't know if I did either of these books justice by rambling on the way I have, but I think it is safe to say that I really enjoyed these books. They were perfect September reads. I am really looking forward to reading more books, reading the rest of the books on my fall TBR, because so far we are off to a banging start. Anyway, that is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. So that is it. That is it. I think that's enough. It was only 2 books, but I think that I talked enough about them. Clearly, they both resonated with me for very different reasons. But I think that the things that they had in common, besides, you know, being witch stories and being stories about magic, they're very much about the protagonist finding their confidence and finding their way in the world. So let me know in the comments if you have read either of these books and what you thought, or what books you read in September that you loved. Until next time, bye!